Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel, and the headline on your screen from the Crypto Basics says it all. Cardano founder says XRP holders' claim about Hinman's conflict of interest with Ethereum is a grand conspiracy. Yes, that's correct. One of the most well-known figures on the entire planet in the world of crypto, Charles Hoskinson, co-founder of Ethereum, founder of Cardano, says that all of the stuff that's been uncovered by the XRP community showing improprieties, all of it is a grand conspiracy. Now, unsurprisingly, there was a lot of pushback within the XRP community on this front. And I'll explain to you where this all came from. And here's the thing, here's part of why I ultimately got a bit disappointed. I'm still a fan of Charles Hoskinson. I have been for many years. Not that it should matter, but I'll note here, I own Cardano. I've owned it almost as long as I've owned XRP. I got it at the tail end of 2017 initially, so I don't remember if it was in November or it could have been December the first time I bought it in 2017. I still hold it, and I've always pointed him out on the channel to just be a very logical, measured individual who is to be respected. And on top of that, Charles Hoskinson was one of the first in the world of crypto to state that XRP is not a security after the SEC sued Ripple, claiming that it is. In December of 2020, Charles Hoskinson was saying that, and he was applauded for that. But he ended up making these statements, and I'll explain where and why, and I'm going to give full context, as I want to be able to speak for himself. I don't want to just put words in people's mouths here. But I will tell you the end result for me personally is that I'm a bit disenchanted, let's say, after seeing everything. Because I'm always willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. After he said what he said, I was thinking, oh, okay, well, he probably just doesn't know the facts, and people say things maybe in a bit more verbose fashion than they necessarily should, but sometimes upon reflection, a bunch of people saying, oh, no, actually, here's some facts. You're like, oh, okay, wow, didn't realize that. Sorry, no problem. Got it. I retract that. I was thinking maybe something like that happened. I thought maybe he really just didn't know what was going on. I still suppose he didn't know all the facts, but he said what he said, and he refuses to retract it. And that's what's got me a little bit troubled here. So it is what it is. I mean, I still have respect for the guy, but I just, at where we're at right now, unless something changes, I'm just a bit disappointed in this whole thing and the way that it's being handled by him, just to be perfectly honest with you. It's not an attack on him personally. Not just in a general sense. Like, I'm not trying to be rude is what I mean by that, or mean. Definitely no venom coming. I'm just giving my honest reaction here. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. Now, I'm going to break up this topic into two different videos. I did want to note that also. I'm going to let Charles Hoskinson flesh out his full thoughts on this. He did so in a long Twitter thread. I'm going to cover that full thread in its entirety. Because again, I don't want to just put words in the guy's mouth. I don't want to do that. I'll do that. That's going to be the last thing I cover on this video in all likelihood. And then in a separate video, I'm going to share with you John Deaton's perspective on this. And I've designed this in such a way that you can watch each video independently, and it's not going to matter. It also will not matter what order you watch them in, and that's by design. It really doesn't matter. But unfortunately, and I discovered this just a little bit before recording this video, initially earlier in the day, today, which is Saturday, Charles agreed to do a live stream with John Deaton, and then he ended up just about 8 hours later saying, nope, no longer going to do it. And I'll show you his exact comments on that as well. But as far as where this all stemmed from, Charles Hoskinson was a guest on the Thinking Crypto YouTube channel hosted by Tony Edward, and he was asked, so what about all this SEC stuff, the SEC v. Ripple case? He just asked kind of a broad questions in terms of legal concerns having to do with crypto in general. So he did mention Ripple specifically, but in his sentence, he brought up a number of things having to do with SEC and the regulatory landscape in crypto. And so Charles Hoskinson could have gone a number of different ways in answering this question, but here's the quote. Here, I'll highlight this for those of you looking on the screen right here. This is what he said in that interview that was released just yesterday. The XRP community tried to invent this grand conspiracy that there was blatant corruption between the insiders at the SEC and Ethereum. I don't honestly think that's the issue here. That's the quote. He says that we in the XRP community have invented, or tried to invent, a grand conspiracy. Now, that's news to me because I've been covering cold hard facts on this for almost 2 damn years at this point. And I'm not the only one. We've been working as an XRP community to get all the news out here. Attorney John Deaton's done an insane amount of work. There is no conspiracy here. The assertions are fact-based. They're purely fact-based. And so for Charles Hoskinson to say something like this, I'm thinking, because I don't think that he was trying to mislead people. He's always struck me as somebody who's intellectually honest, but upon saying that, I was like, oh, I think he probably just doesn't have the facts, to be honest with you. I think he's missing some stuff. And then upon knowing the information, presumably, he'd, set the record straight here. But he did what I know humans to do, this is what I think anyway, this is my supposition, in that once people were confronting him with actual facts to show that this was not some sort of conspiracy thing, that this is fact-based, he retreated and he didn't want to admit his wrong. Like, people hate admitting when they're wrong. They really, really hate admitting when they're wrong. But if you're able to do that, then people trust you and like you more. And so the fact that Charles Hoskinson is presented by so many people with all these facts and he refuses to retract this, and not only that, he dug the hole deeper saying that none of it actually matters. You'll see that in a second. That just made it that much worse. It did make it that much worse, unfortunately. And it's truly regrettable. I think he knows the facts now. He must have seen it. It's been put in front of his face on social media time and again within the last 24 or 30 hours, whatever it's been, that this has been at the forefront of community discussion. There's no way he couldn't be aware of the facts at this point. There's just no. I think there's about a 0% chance of that. But he won't say, "Oh, sorry, I was wrong." He won't retract what they're saying is a grand conspiracy. He won't retract, "Oh, that's not a problem." It's not an issue. All the improprieties. No, it's not a problem. That's not what matters here. He won't retract any of that. He just stands by it. I don't understand how that makes logical sense, and it doesn't. And I don't think that he could possibly think that I don't know how he could think that makes sense. And so my fellow XRP YouTuber, the Digital Asset Investor, wrote the following, and this part was yesterday. I think Charles Hoskinson is a good guy, but he got this one wrong. We have the timeline, we have the video, we have John Deaton. Charles is welcome on my channel anytime with John Deaton to go over which parts are conspiracy and which are facts. I'm a fan. I hold Cardano. Yeah, and so that's the approach I took too, and that's what I think most people in the XRP community did. Now, there were some comments on social media that I would say were rude and a bit unwarranted and unnecessary towards Charles, but this is a big-ass community. You're going to get a little taste of all God's creatures, if you know what I'm saying. But by and large, no, the XRP community was just pointing out the obvious, which was that he was wrong. And then there were very tactful comments, like you see here from DAI, being very diplomatic and very respectful and saying, hey, I'm a fan. Come on, even invite him on the channel. And Charles, he did ultimately jump in here, but I want to share this first. Attorney John Deaton responded to DAI and wrote, Charles is a very likable and Charles is, oh, we did say it like that. Charles is a very likable and a lot smarter than I am. I'd be more than happy to go on your show, DAI, Thinking Crypto Show, or any other show to discuss his claim of a conspiracy. Warning, Charles, I will bring true receipts, backing up everything I say with provable facts. And so there you go. Nothing but respect right out the gate. And yes, there's some fringe people, but it's a big community. You're always going to find some people that are being rude. But I think most people would level head and just be like, whoa, you're going in the wrong direction, Charles. Charles Hoskinson responded to DAI and wrote, conspiracy or not, my point is that it doesn't matter. Pause. Yes, it does. Yes, it does matter, Charles. Like, seriously, it really, really does. You're talking about losing trust, like the general public losing trust and confidence in a government agency, the SEC specifically, and monetary gains for some and monetary destruction for others. Your point is that it doesn't matter? Those are your words, Charles. That is not right. That is not appropriate. That is not reasonable. Charles continues, I explained how we got here and how we need to get out. The entire XRP affair shouldn't have happened. It's bad for the industry, and regulation through enforcement doesn't do any good for anyone. Attorney Deaton responded and wrote, Charles, Empower Oversight doesn't own XRP, not part of the XRP community. Empower sued the SEC, proving they lied in court, and got emails proving conclusively that Hinman violated the criminal conflict laws. Respectfully, you're just wrong to say conspiracy or not, and it doesn't matter. When I filed suit versus the SEC, I owned more in ETH than XRP, and I still do because I knew people would try and dismiss my efforts as a disgruntled XRP holder. As I've said in the SEC, if the SEC had sued Joseph Lubin, Vitalik Buterin, Consensus, claiming today's ETH a security, I would have sued the SEC. But it absolutely matters how we got here. We cannot have a system where a few insiders get to pick the winners, providing a massive regulatory advantage to some and using regulatory enforcement actions as weapons against others. It's disgusting, and it has to stop. I got to give a little bit of a golf clap just to pause. Absolutely correct. And by the way, when I said I was going to let John Deaton speak mostly in a separate video, that's because he has really fleshed out his thoughts on this, along with fact-based statements. So the longer portion, that's going to be a separate video, but there's going to be a little bit of overlap in this one and the other one. Still, these episodes, you can watch them in either order. Like I said, it will not matter. I promise you that. But moving forward here, then there was also this. David Gokhshtein, who has 689,000 followers, founder of Gokhshtein Media. I don't know if it's Gokhshtein or Gokhshtein, I never can remember. Host of Gokhshtein Unfiltered. And I believe he was also running for Congress, if I'm not mistaken, but well known within the XRP community. And he said, man, Charles is a smart dude, but going against the XRP army wasn't smart. And why can't we just come together already? What's the beef about, man? Charles Hoskinson saw that. And by the way, he's got 950,000 followers on Twitter. I'm telling you, this is one of the most well-known people in crypto on the entire planet. And Charles Hoskinson said, there is no beef, David. I was asked a question during an interview. I shared an opinion. Then a wave of people started attacking me on Twitter. I then wrote a 16-tweet thread with my full thoughts. If this is how XRP Army treats people who actually want them to win, ... And so, let me just pause right there. I got to say something. He did, and I'm about to show you in its entirety what he had to say. He shared his thoughts. I don't have a problem with, as I recall anyway, because I only read the thread once, I don't recall having trouble with any of his additional thoughts, but I have a problem with everything, with the two things that everybody else has a problem with, which is that he said, the Bill Hinman SEC ETH stuff is a grand conspiracy. That's objectively false. That is incorrect. He is wrong on that. Factually incorrect. And then he also said that none of this matters, as I just showed you in a tweet. It's those two things. It's just those two things. I agree with him on, I think, everything else that he said that I'm aware of. You know, and I appreciate that he was willing to speak out publicly in December of 2020, saying XRP is not a security, when most others weren't willing to do so. Because it wasn't popular, it wasn't fashionable, and it wasn't clear to most people that agree to which the entire asset class was under attack, yet Charles Hoskinson had the cojones to actually come out and say something about it. So, and that's why I give credit where it's due. And I still respect the guy. I'm just disappointed with how this has gone down. I don't think he's handling this properly. If he thinks that he's right, he has done a very poor job articulating why this is a grand conspiracy. Because he tweeted there's a 16-tweet thread, and again, I'm going to show it to you in a second here. He doesn't explain, he doesn't defend that statement, why it's a grand conspiracy. He's just acting like he didn't say it. And then, why is everybody mad? Why is everybody attacking me? Are you kidding me? You really don't know. And yeah, I don't like the ones that are rude towards you, Charles. I really don't. To me, it's a little bit too Neanderthal-like to just jump to emotional, rude stuff when it comes to that. Especially for someone like you who has been so, reasonable. I know you're not a member of the XRP community, but you've been very even-keeled in terms of the way that you're thinking through this and logical. So yeah, I don't like the rude stuff, but come on, man. And so David Gokhshtein then responded to Charles and said, listen, I have massive respect for you and what you've done in this industry. You've gone to DC and spoke for this space. At what point do we all come together? Note, everyone is entitled to their own opinions. And then Charles responded and wrote, what is the specific issue, David? And again, I'll just pause to note, I cited what the two are, in my opinion, because there's only 2 points of contention. The grand conspiracy claim, which is objectively false, and then saying that all of the improprieties, all the illegal stuff doesn't matter. That's it. It's just those 2 things. It's 2 things. Just retract those, and we're all on board. Quit blaming the XRP community outside of the people who were unnecessarily rude right out the gate. That stuff was uncalled for, but it's a small percentage of the community. It's not how most people are behaving towards you, Charles. I'm just saying here. And so Charles says, what is the specific issue, David? You are speaking in generalities, since you've inserted yourself into this affair. What did I say to divide? Oh, I gotta pause. That's a little bit cringe. That's a little bit cringe. You literally, on video, said that everything that's been uncovered and factually documented for almost 2 years is a grand conspiracy by the XRP community. What did you say to divide? And then you said that the improprieties, none of that matters? What did you say to divide, Charles? I think I found it. I think I found it. And then he says, are you actually familiar with my comments or the Twitter filtered version of them? Walk through my tweet thread and tell me specifics. And then Harry responded, this is an XRP community member, he said, you called it a conspiracy, Charles. The only way to recover the situation is to speak with John Deaton next. And then David Gockstein responded and wrote, and Charles, how about you and John Deaton come on my podcast? My guest has agreed, reschedule, and we can talk about this issue like mature adults. I know how to mod, plus you owe me one. Charles responded, and this was 8 hours ago, mind you. He responded and said, sure, we can figure something out. If anything, to get people to chill out. This whole affair is bizarre. And I'll come back to that in just a second, because I ended up responding to him on Twitter. He didn't get back to me ever, but that's fine. He got a bazillion comments. And he doesn't owe me anything, obviously. And then John Deaton responded to that and said, I'm happy to have a healthy, civil, and respectful discussion with Charles. In the end, we are all on the same team fighting for smart, tailored regulations against regulatory overreach. So there you go. That was 8 hours ago. Charles and Attorney Deaton agreed they're going to go on David Gockstein's show. They're going to go on there and they're going to have a healthy, civil, respectful discussion. And then what happened just a few hours ago, 5:54 p.m. Central Standard Time, Charles responded to John out of nowhere and said, I want nothing more to do with any of this conversation. Best of luck. He bowed out. And it's not like there were any new developments from the XRP community. It's just a continuation of the XRP community saying, you're wrong, here's why, and then some rude comments as well. But again, like I keep saying, I want to reiterate this yet again, the rude comments are nowhere near as vast as the comments that are just articulating, hey, you're wrong, here's why. Okay? And he is wrong. And here's what I wrote to Charles, part of what I wrote. And this is after he initially said he was going to come on the show before retracting that. He said, glad you're willing to do that. But the fact that people are responding as they have isn't bizarre. It's because you said that fact-based info is a conspiracy and that improprieties don't matter. I agree with the rest of what you say, but no one here agrees with those 2 points. And look, I think I'm hitting the nail on the head here. I think I'm hitting the nail on the head. But he won't acknowledge it. And so here's his full comments. Because again, I want to speak his mind in his own words. He never addresses those 2 points in all of this, though. He doesn't retract the grand conspiracy thing, and he says the rest of it doesn't matter. He doesn't retract that either. So check this out. Here's what Charles had to say. Recently, the most surprising thing to me has been how hard I'm being hit by some of the XRP side for my recent comments on their SEC issues. I've always been of 2 minds here, and I guess some nuance is required to explain, which the internet always lacks. I've always taken a position that most Layer 1 protocols aren't securities because it's bizarre and senseless to consider something that offers utility, is decentralized enough to have operators and builders throughout the world, and survives its founders passing Howie. People speculating on oil don't make oil a security any more than baseball cards. You can always securitize oil or baseball cards, but then you have obvious issuers and information asymmetries. Cryptocurrencies aren't immune to regulation. Markets need to be stable, well-functioning, trusted actors monitored, and cartels examined. Commodity regulation is principles-based, market-oriented, and global by nature. Commodities survive those who aggregate them. Ripple created something that has an ecosystem that will survive Brad, Chris, David, or anyone else. The very fact that there is an independent XRP army criticizing me is proof of this reality. The ledger will run likely for decades trading value. The merits of the case should rest on the absurdity of applying securities regulation to something that has millions of independent participants in more than 100 countries who cannot be controlled by any fiduciary of a single company. Thus, it seems totally unnecessary to construct elaborate personal attacks on former and current government employees and also attack Bitcoin for its energy use or Chinese influence. Individual corruption has nothing to do with Howie. Pause right there. Now, when I get into the next video, Attorney Deaton retweeted that part of this thread, and then he explained, because he went on a roll, and Attorney Deaton's right with everything that he said.
But look, Charles Hoskinson, he's right here in his own words saying it's unnecessary, totally unnecessary, to construct elaborate personal attacks on former and current government employees. So there you go. We're just constructing them. They're not grounded in reality, right? Isn't that the implication anyway? They're not grounded in reality. All these things we uncovered about Hinman and Clayton and all this stuff, all of it. We should not even be talking about that. For him to be saying this, if he meant what he said in this thread, he is uninformed. He is unquestionably uninformed, or he's lying. Now, I wouldn't mind if he came out at any point and just like, oh, wow, now that I've examined the information, I jumped the gun. My bad, sorry. Totally fine. We're all human. We all make mistakes. I've jumped the gun on stuff before. I try not to in life, but we're all human, so it can happen. Or you think that you are sufficiently informed, as he presumably thought he was, and had an opinion, but he was not aware that there was a bunch of other information that perhaps would have changed his opinion. That's what I'm supposing here, because it is so fact-based and he's normally so logical. I don't know how he's suddenly not logical, which is why I think that he's doing this thing that humans do, where he's just not admitting he's wrong because it's a painful thing to do. He won't take back the grand conspiracy comment. I can't make sense of this otherwise. And so all humans are like, I've done that before, so I'm not like making him out to be the devil here. Like, I've done that. You listening to this, you have done this too. We're all guilty of this behavior. So I'm not going to crucify him over this, but that is what I think is going on here. And we should all strive not to do that. Like, it's not fun to admit when you're wrong, but it's the right thing to do, you know? But I'll just continue with the thread here. This is Charles' words. These are Charles' words again. It's also counterproductive to any claim. It's like saying, well, you got away with speeding because you are the cop's brother. Shouldn't one be arguing that the speed limit is wrong, so neither party should be given a ticket? Analyzing the allegations of corruption seems to imply that Ethereum should also be sued by the SEC, but wasn't because of relationships. But how does this in any way solve the larger issue of cryptocurrencies being forced into a framework that make no sense? It's really easy to get outraged by injustices perceived or real, but outrage doesn't solve any problem. It just makes more problems and reduces the solution space as potential collaborators now can't work together. During this year, I've spent a considerable amount of time trying to attack the root cause of our industry's issue. The legislative branch has been negligent in its duty to pass new laws to resolve the consequences of new technology. Regulators have to follow the law. There is certainly flexibility with enforcement, which often can be political. But circumstances force action. As an industry, we cannot pretend that Luna, BitConnect, OneCoin, and tens of billions of dollars of hacks haven't happened. We cannot ignore that trillions of dollars of value appear and disappear yearly now. In the absence of bespoke regulation, regulators will just try to apply the existing rules as they see fit, regardless if it makes sense or is fair. Hence, it makes sense to change the rules of the game in order for the new economy we are building together to thrive. It's been done before. Cynicism and bullying solve nothing. It requires leadership and tireless effort. New laws are going to be passed in 2023. Whether they enable the industry to thrive or badly harm its progress in America is entirely up to you. Our level of engagement, our mutual collaboration, our support for those trying to solve the actual problems. Courts make poor substitutes for legislative holes, as we've seen with even stable rulings like Roe v. Wade evaporating. If we desire certainty, then we need to legislate. This is our window. Do what you will with it. So there you go. That's the end of the thread. So at no point did he retract the grand conspiracy claim, which he has to know is at the heart of this. And now he must know that there are facts backing it. It is not a conspiracy. It doesn't fit the definition of conspiracy when it's fact-based, and provably so. It is not the definition of a conspiracy in any capacity, period. He will not retract that. And he doesn't think that the improprieties matter. He says that doesn't matter. It's not the point. It's not the point. There we go. And so now you've seen his full words. And the rest of it, I think I agree with probably close to 100% of what he said there. The rest of it, it's innocuous, right? Who's going to have problems with that? So it's just so disappointing to see this from Charles in particular, because I've just said nothing but glowing things about him because I think it's been deserved. But at this point, I got to admit, I am a bit disappointed. And again, I know we've all engaged in this behavior where we don't want to admit we're wrong. Like I said, I'm a 39-year-old man. I'll admit, like, I've done that before. And sometimes I feel like I want to do it in the moment sometimes, but the right thing to do is to fight the urge to do that so that you're truthful. Because, and the reason I say is because we all know it's not fun to admit you're wrong, but it's the right thing to do. That's why I do that, you know? Because it's better to do that and then maybe feel a little bit silly and embarrassed or whatever. Oh my gosh, oh yeah, okay. But then people like you and respect you more. Isn't that more valuable? Isn't it more important to end up with that and take a little bit of embarrassment or whatever so that you're being an honest person? Isn't that more important? Because I think the answer is yes. You know, and it's not always easy to do, but it's the right thing to do. And it just seems like such an obvious case of that. Because Charles is, like I said, he's a brilliant guy. He is so smart, and he seems hyper logical. For him to not be able to see that this is not a conspiracy, I don't know how that's possible. Like, I don't believe that. I do not believe that. I'll say it outright. I don't believe it. Now, if he comes out and he's like, no, I wrote all that stuff and I still didn't read all of the facts that people were tweeting at me, even from John Deaton, then I'll be like, well, okay, that's weird, but okay, if you say that you haven't read it and now you're admitting, okay, you know that, okay, fine, I'll even accept that. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's where we're at. So look, I'm going to go ahead and stop here. This is the reason that I knew this was going to be long if I turn this into one video, so I'm going to stop here. The next video, like I said, it's totally interchangeable. It doesn't matter what order you watch them, especially if you've watched you already watched this one anyway. But that's going to be, there'll be a little bit from Charles Hoskinson, but it's going to be heavy on John Deaton, whereas this was more heavy on Charles Hoskinson's comments along with some commentary from me. The next video is going to be heavy on perspective from attorney John Deaton, as well as including fact-based stuff from him in terms of why Charles Hoskinson is wrong. Like it's not even a question. Like, Charles is wrong. He just is. On the facts, he's wrong, period. It's not an opinion-based thing. It actually isn't. It's facts-based thing, which is why I can say that definitively. I wouldn't say that about, not like, I wouldn't word it like that if it were an opinion-based thing. It just isn't, though. You all let me know what you think in the comment section below. I get a sense that most people in the XRP community feel the same. I'm with you. So I think we're probably all about on the same page of this. Some people are more forgiving, some are less forgiving. I'm just disappointed, you know? It's just disappointing to see this from a leader like Charles Hoskinson, who's done so much good for the space. It's just really disappointing to see this. That's all I can say. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.